Mute everybody. Tanuja. Yeah.
एक मिनट
Okay. Good morning and welcome everybody. We welcome you all to this interesting topic, Monsoon 2020 and Kharif crop prospects. There's a piece of good news for the Indian economy, which is battling the COVID-19 and its artifacts of gloomy scenario. India is likely to have a normal monsoon this year, the country's weather department has declared. Monsoon rains are expected to be 100% of the long-term average. You may realize I put my background as the crop field. I'm sitting in the middle of the crop field to show the abundance of the crop. The monsoons are crucial to rice, wheat, sugarcane, and oilseeds cultivation in the country and to the agricultural sector, where farming accounts for about 15% of the economy and employs over half of its people. Thus, there are expectations that sowing of the Kharif commodities this year will be higher than the previous year. The Kharif season starts from June and ends in September during the southwest monsoon. The crops classified as Kharif are rice, maize, jawar, bajra, tur, moong, urad, cotton, jute, and groundnut, and soya bean. I think we all need all of them, of course, obviously. Last year, 1920, the Kharif crops production was 145 million tons of the total food grains of 292 million tons. This year, amid COVID-19 lockdown, pre-monsoon sowing of Kharif crop has begun across the country. I'm glad that it all happened and the migrants could go back in time to plant the Kharif crop because had it not happened, we would be in for another disaster, I think. Total area planted under all Kharif crops could increase to 48.76 lakh hectares so far this season as against 37 lakh hectares in the same period last year. Paddy acreage 27% higher at 32 lakh hectares as compared to last year. Acreage of pulses is also likely to appreciably rise this year. Coverage during this period in the pre-monsoon sowing of Kharif crops has begun across the country despite the pandemic of COVID-19 and the countrywide lockdown. The market sentiment keeps changing with the change in the monsoon progress and change in the sown area figures. In fact, I read some reports today which says the monsoon may hit Mumbai on 1st or 2nd June. So let's hope it does because we're all sweltering over here. If weather conditions continue to be conducive as per the latest IMD's predictions, there could be a good harvest in the coming season, which could also increase production. While an increase in crop acreage has eased the fear of a fall in production, where a bright harvest outlooks also throws a challenge to the government to deal with the situation of the abundance of produce, especially if the COVID-19 crisis continues. Most prices of Kharif crops are currently trading slightly above the MSP, that is the minimum support price by the government. A good monsoon creates a positive perception about the economy amongst the investors, including the FIIs, as part of the India depends on agri for sustenance. Agri has a strong links with industrial and service sectors, plus a direct bearing on the rural economy and consumption. Not only does a good monsoon increase from production, giving more money to farmers, it also keeps inflation under check by increasing the supply of food articles. However, there are a few challenges which the government faces with each Kharif and Rabi season. Production of oilseeds appears to have stagnated at about 31 million tons during the last 3 years. To make India cotton to clothing sector competitive, efforts have to be made to improve the crop productivity and reduce costs. Water management is a crucial factor as Indian agriculture is vulnerable to the vagaries of the weather, and threat of climate change adds an important layer of vulnerability and uncertainty to existing risks. Crop residue management is a very big concern for the state governments. This is related to the stubble burning in the northern states of Punjab, Haryana, UP in the months of November, December, and January, causing pollution of unmanageable kinds. We all know what happened this year, and let's hope that the government can take some good measures to protect in the coming year. Forecasting of the demand and supply situations, and then the National Policy of Biofuels 2018 allows the use of corn for ethanol production, which will not only give a boost to maize sector in the country, but also help in increasing farm income. This needs to be further studied and developed. There is a recommendation by the Agricultural Ministry that multi-cereals should be included in the NFSA, that's the National Food Securities Act, Targeted Public Distribution System, PDS, and other welfare schemes in those states where multi-cereals were part of the staple diet and malnutrition was to a large extent was controlled. Recently, as we all know, the Honorable Finance Minister in the stimulus package has given 1 lakh crores for agricultural cooperatives. Now, I think this is an excellent move because it encourages the concept of farm to fork, and it allows the farmers to get the best value for their products, eliminating the middlemen altogether. let's hope that it takes off and is a good boon for the farmers. Also, before this meeting started, we were chatting about the locust, which was supposed to attack Maharashtra. Maharashtra being in red zone, the locust has got scared and gone away. Also, as Mr. Chandra said, a very nice thing that luckily we are in the mid part of it where the rabi crop has been already harvested and the Kharif is going to be planted. So as he mentioned, that it's only the orchards which probably will face the brunt of it, if at all they do come into Maharashtra by any means. But I'm sure the Shiv Sena, with all its power, will get rid of them in any case. Okay, I am sure that today's conference will take a note of the above and discuss issues which the chamber would take up with the state and central government to bring about improvement in agriculture. I would suggest a similar meet could be organized post-monsoon also to review the Kharif production and also understand the oncoming of the rabi cropping season, which is next. With these few words, I request all the participants to please take over and wish this event a great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for amazing opening remarks. Now, I would like to invite G. Chandrasekhar, sir, Director of IMC ERTF, who would be moderating today's session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this wonderful snapshot of Indian agriculture. You virtually covered various different aspects very nicely. Thanks. I must mention, Mr. President, this is actually an annual feature. This is a calendar event for the chamber over the last several years that sometime late May or early June, we do this monsoon forecast and Kharif crop prospects. Also, sometime in September, October, we look at the Kharif output and Rabi prospects. So thank you very much. I think we will certainly take it up in September or October, a review of the Kharif output and the oncoming Rabi prospects, etc. Therefore, this is indeed a calendar event. I must mention, I'm sure many of the participants who've been regularly attending this every year would know, and this gives great value. Let me start with a brief presentation. I have a few bullet points to share. Anita, will you? Okay. Agriculture for our next
slide.
Agriculture for our country is extremely important. Although it contributes to just about 15, 16 or occasionally 17% of the GDP, it employs, as the President mentioned, more than 50% of the workforce. And therefore, this is an extremely important sector. Primarily, it's critical for growth with equity and inclusiveness. We at the Chamber have always talked about growth. We have talked about inclusiveness. And if there is one sector which can substantially contribute to growth with equity and inclusiveness, it is of course agriculture. And why Southwest monsoon? Simply because it is the critical driver of farm output. Rice, pulses, coarse grains, oilseeds, cotton, these are extremely important crops for our country. And it is the output and the quality of the output and the quantum of output substantially depends on the distribution of rainfall between June and September. Fortunately for us this year, 2020, the India Meteorological Department has forecast normal rains. The long period average is 880 millimeters or 88 centimeters. And if it's between 96% and 102% of the long period average, we call this a normal monsoon. And this year's forecast or prediction is that of normal monsoon, which is a very positive development in the midst of a complete national lockdown. Factories are closed. Economic activities have come to a standstill. Import-export trade has come to a standstill. In all this, I think agriculture looks like a beacon of hope for this country. The normal onset of monsoon over Kerala, it starts on 1st of June. A later slide, I'll show you the latest progress of Southwest monsoon and how close it is to the Kerala coast. But the moment the normal time is 1st June, and there is every likelihood that it'll knock our doors exactly on time. The country is divided into 36 meteorological subdivisions. We'll also show another slide to show these subdivisions. Between 1st March and 20th May, for which data are available, we've had some pre-monsoon rains. As a result of which, 21 subdivisions out of 36 are showing enough soil moisture. 9 subdivisions are showing normal soil moisture. And of course, there is some deficiency in 6 subdivisions. Therefore, in terms of sowing, pre-monsoon sowing, or say paddy transplantation or cotton cultivation, which has started in areas like Punjab in northern India, even 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think that there is some positivity to this soil moisture. Next slide. Okay, this is the rainfall between 1st March and 20th May. We can see this very clearly. A substantial part of central India, northwest India, North India, and even eastern parts are blue in color, which shows that the moisture, the rainfall was good during this period. We also, of course, had unseasonal rains by end March, early April, which damaged a part of the crop, a part of the wheat crop, a part of the chickpea crop in Madhya Pradesh, etc. But notwithstanding all that, these rains, unseasonal rains, have also delivered enough soil moisture for farmers to undertake sowing for the Kharif season. Therefore, I think from a soil moisture perspective, combined with the forecast of a good monsoon, I think it's very, very favorable for Indian agriculture. Next slide. Okay, reservoir storage, absolutely comfortable. Total live storage in 123 important reservoirs across India is 60.7 billion cubic meters. Compare that with last year at this time, it was only 36 BCM. This year it is 60, I mean, close to nearly double or 70% higher than what it was last year, which means water availability in the reservoirs is absolutely comfortable, which is very good. As of 21st May, we have 109 reservoirs that are holding more than 80% of their water capacity, and about 8% are holding between 50 and 80%, and about 6 are holding about 30%. Therefore, from a reservoir water availability perspective, even if the monsoon is delayed slightly, there should be no worry. But fortunately, God is kind. Monsoon is going to hit us well in time or on time, and that's again very positive. Next slide, Anita. Okay, let us look at the targets. I have tried my best, but I have not been able to get specific target for Kharif 2021. The Government of India, the Ministry of Agriculture had a meeting in April, and they issued only the annual target for 2021. And I'm comparing that with the target with actual production in 2019-20. The target, remember, is both Rabi, Kharif and Rabi put together, because rice is cultivated both in Kharif and Rabi season, although 85 to 90% of the rice crop comes out of the Kharif season. Wheat is an exclusively Rabi crop. For the time being, we can keep it aside. Pulses, about 60%, 65% of the pulse crop comes out of the Rabi season. Chickpea primarily and lentil. For the Kharif crop is only about 30% of total production. The annual target is, of course, 26.3 million tons. And if we were to take last year's target of Kharif pulse crop as this year's target, it'll be about 8.5 million tons or so. Coarse grains are now called nutri-cereals. The annual target is 48.7 million tons. The Kharif target should be close to 38 or 40 million tons, in my opinion, which is substantially driven by maize, which is a very large crop in the Kharif season, plus of course jowar, bajra, etc. Oil seeds again, 36.6 million tons is the annual crop. Soybean and groundnut are very important Kharif crops for us, plus sesame seed. In the Rabi season, we have rapeseed mustard. For Kharif, soybean and groundnut are very critical. Sugarcane, as we all know, is a 12-month crop. So it was actually planted several months ago in Feb and March. But the harvest, in fact, 6 months ago, the harvest of sugarcane will start sometime in October, November this year. And the distribution of southwest monsoon has a bearing on cane yields. Therefore, if we have good distribution of rainfall, both temporal and spatial distribution of rainfall between June and September, and I'm sure even cane output, cane yields should increase, and we should probably hit the target. Cotton is, of course, very important commercial crop. Last year production was 36 million bales of 170 kilos, but only 2 days ago, the Cotton Association of India reduced the crop size by about 30 lakh, 3 million bales to about 33 or 34 million bales. The target for 2021 is about 36 million bales. Whether we will achieve this target, we don't know. Hopefully, if the distribution turns out to be good, we should be able to achieve this Kharif production target for cotton also. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. There are, the only number that is available from the government of India is that the Kharif food grains target is 150 million tons, which primarily includes rice, coarse grains, and pulses. Okay. Now, the minimum support price, I have always argued and spoken about this, that it should be announced well ahead of the planting season. But more often than not, it is announced late June or even during July, when a large number of farmers have actually completed their planting already. So what is the use of announcing this MSP so late? What prevents the government of India from announcing MSP well in advance? I don't know, but I've been arguing this for long years, but it has not had any impact. The Commission for Agriculture Costs and Prices has made its usual recommendation for a hike in minimum support price, taking into account the cost of input, increase in cost of input, etc., etc. But what I found very interesting in the CACP's recommendation to the government of India is that for PGNP, which is Tuar Arhar, the last year's MSP was 5,800 rupees per quintal. This year, the recommendation is to raise it to 6,000 rupees. Similarly, on Urad, last year's MSP was 5,700 rupees a quintal. This year's recommendation is to raise it to 6,000 rupees. But we all know that the prices of pulses are far below the minimum support price. And therefore, it is important that the government supports the farmers, strengthens its procurement mechanism, and does not allow, the government should not allow prices to fall below the minimum support price, but the procurement efforts have not been adequate. In this scenario, what is the point in raising MSP if there is no commensurate procurement mechanism or price support mechanism? This is something the CACP and the government will have to actually answer. But the CACP has given its recommendation. Similarly, on oil seeds, I found the government is talking about self-sufficiency in oil seeds. Yes, we need to move towards self-sufficiency. We need to encourage domestic cultivation. But very surprisingly, I found the CACP recommending a very substantial increase for a very small crop called Niger seed. Niger seed production is less than 1 lakh tons. It does not contribute to our edible oil security at all. And yet that oil seed has been given a very substantial increase by the CACP. I don't know what the logic is. But anyway, let's accept this. But I think we need to actually review, and it devolves on institutions like the Chamber of Commerce, IMC, to actually look at all these dispassionately and make recommendations. I'm sure we'll take up these issues and provide guidance and provide policy inputs for the government. Okay, all of us know about the Locust Attack. Last at least 10 or 12 days, we've been hearing about it, talking about it. It's come to Rajasthan. It's come to Madhya Pradesh. It's come to parts of Maharashtra, Vidarbha region, Amravati, Nagpur, etc. What kind of impact it will have on Kharif crop is something all of us have to think about. And I'm sure both Mr. Nagarajan and Mr. Rana, who have actually hands-on experience in these matters, will shed more light on this. The question is also on availability of inputs. Are seeds, Kharif crop seeds available adequately? Are there any distribution related issues? What about fertilizers? We know there is some tightness in the availability of fertilizers. Agrochemicals, are agrochemicals available for the crop? Recently, the government of India banned as many as 27 chemicals for use in agriculture. And some of these chemicals like malathion are actually can be used for locust control. So I think we are actually in a state of dilemma. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm sure our experts will take us through this. Next, is there a next slide? Yeah, okay. Anita, take it up slightly. Take it up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, not the next slide. Take that, move it up, or shrink it, shorten it.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Doesn't matter. Okay. The monsoon is very close to Kerala coast. It's kind of knocking at our doors. In my opinion, it should start raining. Today is Friday. I think therefore by the weekend, possibly Sunday, or surely by Monday, it should set itself at our border in the Kerala coast, and it should progress normally. And when it progresses normally, it comes to Konkan region by about 8th or 10th of the month, which is June. And of course, in Bombay, certainly before the 15th of the month, we should enjoy some very, very welcome showers, in my opinion. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. I think I'll stop here. And thanks for your patient hearing. Let me now invite Mr. Nagarajan to share his thoughts on various issues that we are talking about. He has a presentation.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar, and a very good morning to everybody on the call. I do have a presentation, and I will try to share that now so that it will help us through the discussion. Anita, is it possible for you to confirm if you are able to see the presentation?
Yes, we are able to see, sir.
Okay. In terms of Kharif outlook, already Mr. Chandrasekhar has covered some of the things that I have put in here in the first slide. The monsoon outlook has already been stated to be normal. I think this is the early forecast that has come. That's very promising. The reservoir status, I think this point was also already made, with the soil moisture levels being significantly higher. If you see the current year's reservoir status is in fact larger than the last 10 years average. So it's actually, and not just larger, significantly larger. So I think it's an extremely positive context as we head into Kharif 2020. When you look at the farmers' income levels for this marketing year, as they call it, marketing year 2020, which is based on the production that has happened in the last year, Mr. Chandrasekhar already did mention that the production levels for 2019-20, which is both Kharif plus Rabi, of course, what the government has published. This is what I am showing on the chart, and they have been better than 2018-19 on a general basis. In fact, in the case of wheat, it is significantly better, right? It's about 6% higher at 107 million tons compared to about 101 million tons. So the important point is that the higher Rabi production has actually helped boost the annual production for last year, which is an important component of contributing to the farmer's income, which is really the product of the quantity produced with the prices prevailing. Now, if you look at the chart on the right side, the prices for commodities have generally tended to prevail similar to the previous year, except in some notable examples like urad and gram. I think it was mentioned already, though Mr. Chandrasekhar did mention with respect to the prices in relation to the announced MSP levels. What I have tended to focus here is on what the transacted prices are at the mandi. So these are mandi prices of April 2020 versus mandi prices of April 2019, which are somewhat more relevant from the point of view of farmers' income. But one thing which I want to also clarify is that there has been a big challenge for a number of farmers to even get to the mandis to dispose of their produce in the context of the COVID-19. So there is also a large portion of transactions that have happened at what you may call as distress prices, which are lower than what these mandi prices indicate. So on an overall basis, while the data seems to suggest that there is a similar level of income or a little better level of income, in practice, I should think that there is a little bit higher stress than what these numbers indicate. Further on, what I have tried to show here is to situate the farmer's agricultural income in his overall income. I mean, as everybody is aware, the farmer is not deriving his income only from agriculture in India. Many of them are small farmers with an average holding of just over a hectare each. And typically, you would find only 47% of the average farmer's income comes from agriculture on an average. And there is 32% which is derived from the farmer working as a laborer in somebody else's field. So it's actually on wages or maybe in some other kind of operations where he's actually deriving wages. About 13% of his income comes from livestock. So it's about cattle, it's about poultry, it's about sheep. So I think livestock income contributes about 13%. And then some of them do get engaged in non-farm activities as well. Some of them may be having a small shop, or some of them may even be working in other, government as well as in private enterprises. So 8% of the income comes from these kind of non-farm activities. What is the reason why I'm trying to show this is to highlight the fact that the average farmer in India is not just an agriculturist, and his income is a composite of many things: agricultural income, wages, livestock income, and non-farm income. This assumes importance in today's context because COVID is impacting every one of these. It is not just impacting the agricultural income, but it's also impacting his ability to work in somebody else's field, to travel and work in a neighboring district or in some other place, and therefore his wages are actually affected. As everybody is aware, the Horeca segment, as they call it, right, the hotel, restaurant, and catering segment is completely smashed. During the lockdown, there is no mall that is open, no restaurants that are open. So the institutional purchase, institutional buying, whether it is of livestock related products, chicken and stuff like that, or even vegetables for that matter, has significantly come down, and certainly so even in the export markets. So we do have situations where grapes, for example, are not getting exported to international destinations because there are no channels available to reach the products to the international customers, international retail customers. So I think it's a significant impact from that standpoint as well. So the overall point that I wanted to cover or mention in this slide is to say that the farmer's income is under tremendous stress, not just the agricultural income, but the farmer's income. Now, if you also sort of try to peel the onion a little bit more to understand how does it affect different segments of farmers, it's noteworthy to point out that different segments actually have different levels of impact. So I have tried to sort of lay out here three broad kind of crop categories. On the left, you find paddy and wheat. So if you think about it, the blue line is typically a distribution of income of farmers, let's say income per acre. And this is farmer's income, not just agricultural income. So let's say the farmer is growing paddy or wheat. So there is a distribution of his income. The blue line kind of represents the distribution. So some of them are earning below the mean, some of them are earning above the mean. And there is a particular average level of income per acre or per hectare, whatever way you want to unitize it, you can look at it. But clearly what has happened is consequent to COVID, the blue line, the blue graph has shifted westwards to the red bar. So you have a drop in the mean level of income. So there is a drop in the average income of the farmers. If you go to the right extreme and focus on vegetables as another segment of farmers, vegetables as a segment, which is, let's say, perishables, right? And I alluded to the example of grapes. The shift of the red graph is even more than the shift of the blue graph, than in the case of paddy and wheat. So the drop in mean income in the case of certain crops, certain segments like vegetables is much higher than it is in the case of certain other segments like paddy or wheat. Cotton and maize perhaps fall somewhere in between. The important point that I want to therefore bring home is that incomes of the farmers on an average is stressed. And the risk levels that they will now have to assume going into this particular season, Kharif 2020, is much higher because you have less cushioning ability coming from less reduced income. But there is also a difference in the stress levels between different segments of farmers. And those segments could be across crops like we talked about, or it could even be across geographies, because there are certain geographies like Punjab, which seem to have done an admirable job in the procurement of wheat. And that certainly cushions the drop in income there compared to certain other states where things may not have worked out in as great a fashion. So it's important to recognize that there is a very, very nuanced impact on the farmers, driven by the nature of the crops they grow, depending on the geography that they are present in. So that is really how we are looking at the COVID impact from a farmer point of view. Ultimately, as a market participant in the agro input business, we also want to see how it is affecting trade, right? How is it affecting players like us? So if you kind of broadly into 4 or 5 areas, and if I were to take each one of them, maybe I can share some perspective on how we are seeing the impact. If you look at the sales that is happening in various shops, there have been a lot of restrictions in terms of shop timings in different states. So these restricted shop timings has affected the ability, has created the possibility of crowding at these places. Lower footfalls because farmers are also finding it difficult to come at those particular times. Having said that, I think there has been a tremendous response that both the seed industry and the crop care industry has done hitherto, with a tremendous amount of support from the government as well in terms of improvement in logistics. There have been problems, there have been issues, and definitely, just like in the case of different farmer segments getting affected differently, different companies in the agri input supply business have got affected differently. Some of the bigger ones perhaps have been able to weather the difficulties a little better than the smaller ones. The net upshot of all this is we don't think that there is any delay that is expected at the farmer level with respect to seed sales. Most of the companies, and certainly the larger ones, have been able to reach their material in many, many geographies. In fact, there has also been some kind of higher buying of fertilizers. I think it was alluded to earlier in in the meeting as well in the month of April this year. Now, how much of it is triggered by panic buying at the trade and how much of it is really farmer level purchases? We are still in the process of fine-tuning our understanding on that. We think a large amount of it is actually panic buying created by a scarcity mindset at the trade level rather than necessarily at the farmer level. What we are also finding is that the need for reaching the farmers in their local geographies, in other words, sales by locally present retail outlets as opposed to places where they have to travel out. The local presence is something which we think will have increased sales because of the movement restrictions that the farmers are facing. And we are also finding that there is a strong possibility for increase in e-commerce based sales. So these are a few things which are happening on the sales front. If you look at it from the raw materials front, which are required in the case of agrochemicals particularly, China has actually come back pretty much in terms of its manufacturing capacity. So it's about 80% level that it is functioning. But I think India is still operating at a much, much lower utilization. We talked about it earlier about Ajay was mentioning that in Gurgaon, they are permitting 33% of staff. I think in many geographies, our factories are operating with 33 or 50% of the staff. Of course, there is a prioritization. The companies are doing as best as possible to put the most critical staff in front and making sure that the utilization levels are protected or even kept at a reasonable level. But I think it will be incorrect to say that there is no supply side impact. There is clearly a supply side disruption. And we think that therefore availability of pesticides can get affected. We are finding this even in, here again, there is a nuanced impact. We are finding this even in our third-party formulators, for example. They are much smaller players and they are certainly finding that it's a lot more difficult to mobilize manpower to be able to do it, to be able to do the production levels that we are seeking. So I think this should probably be representative of the general industry. I think there is clearly a supply disruption. If you look at logistics, although the government has supported a lot and the companies have also put in their best efforts, there is an impact consequent to the delays in supplies. This may not affect the consumption of seeds or crop care to that level, and that is why in the sales I had mentioned that we don't expect any major delay in seed sales. But certainly, in comparison to the plans that companies have had, there has been delays in terms of making supplies available. Availability of trucks for inland transportation and availabilities of ships has been an issue. Even if the ship is available and the material is available at the port, there is a lot of port level procedures which have been quite difficult, which have all become, the workflows are being digitized. They are not completely digital workflows at the port level. Much of it is still manual. All of that has contributed to a lot of problems at the supply side. Cost of transportation has certainly increased. We have witnessed freight costs increasing by a substantial amount. At least in the early part of April, it was quite high, though it is now a bit lower and it is stabilizing. These delays may lead to, these effects may lead to a shortage in supply, and therefore availability is going to be a very important consideration from the point of view of farmer consumption. Well, on labor shortage, the migrant workers problem is something which everybody is aware of. That has created a lot of shortage in the factories. Safe distancing norms have added to the need to actually have fewer staff, 33%, 50%. We spoke about it earlier. So labor shortage affects, and it certainly affects the small SKU productions even more, which are a little bit more labor intensive than the large SKU productions, for example. So labor shortage is an important impact as well. Coming to the financial strength, I think the Rabi sales, we talked about it, the mandi prices seem to be holding up, but really the actual sales that the farmer effect perhaps are prices, and there are also less availability, therefore at the retail point from these collections. There is a liquidity crunch we do expect at the marketplace. Retailers have become extremely cautious. They are extending credit, but only to farmers which they are very comfortable with. Farmers are constrained to pick up products which they may not necessarily prefer from a performance standpoint. In other words, brand loyalty is something which is getting compromised for the sake of having something instead of not going without a product because availability is a constraint. So I think impact of COVID-19 on trade is multidimensional, and it does seem that there is going to be an effect out of this. Well, we also know that the government has put in a lot of efforts to curtail the COVID impact. These are some of the things that they have done. I don't want to go through each one of them because many of these are already known to all the people on the call. So I will probably skip this slide just to say that the government has put in a lot of efforts to curtail the COVID impact. But I want to spend 1 minute on the Atmanirbhar Bharat, this package, which has got the self-reliant package, which has been announced by the government. I want to pick 3 of them which have important consequences, and maybe it is irrelevant whether it is going to have a short-run consequence or a long-run consequence. The first one is in terms of deregulating the Essential Commodities Act, where the most important factor, as we understand, is the removal of stock limits for storage. For many of these commodities. This is something which can potentially trigger a lot of investment into storage, and that can help the country in terms of being able to keep the produce longer. There is also the second important element of the package, which is the permission to trade outside the APMCs. Now, this is something which, if well executed, can lead to very different price discovery, and therefore the farmers can benefit from demand even from outside their states. The third one is about the legal framework, which allows the farmers to enter into, in simple language, contract farming. And this is something which can also provide a very different kind of environment for the farmers as compared to what has been hitherto experienced. While there are a few other elements in the Atmanirbhar Bharat package, I think the most important as we see it are these 3: Essential Commodities Act, the APMC modifications, and the contract farming related elements. So, taking all of this into account, how do we see the outlook? I've tried to put it in the short run, medium term, and long run. Short term is Kharif 2020, which is the subject of this webinar, though I've added medium term and long term just to sort of position it in the longer context. Medium term, I've tried to reflect on Rabi 2020, and long term is beyond that, let's say next year and beyond. So in the short run, clearly, in spite of all the discussions we have had about the effect of COVID-19, we think that agriculture is likely to be less affected compared to other sectors from the perspective of consumption. There are varying estimates about how the farmer incomes can get affected. People say 4%, 5%. There are various studies, but I think it's very hard to sort of quantify. But whatever it is, if you were to compare it with the retail segment, or if you were to compare it with the airline segment, or if you were to compare it with the gems and jewelry, for example, hotels, hospitality, I mean, every one of these other sectors, and even automobiles for that matter, we would think that the agriculture sector is in a much better shape compared to all these other sectors. Certainly, there are possible changes in customer behavior. There could be shifting from one crop to another in various geographies. We do expect some crop shifts to happen. We do believe that there is likely to be a drop in brand loyalty consequent to the lack of cash, and also consequent to the lack of availability. Home delivery is something which is going to become more and more important, whether it is orchestrated through e-commerce or whether it is orchestrated by traditional companies. I think that's a different matter, but I think home delivery is their trend that is emerging, where bulk payment, bulk orders, spot cash payment. So the retailers are becoming cautious. So there is a trend which is emerging in certain pockets for buying in bulk. Farmers are hesitant to go 2 times. Farmers are preferring to go once instead of going 2 times in order to purchase their material rather than going ever so frequently. I think much has been talked about in the news media about digital connect, channel communication through things like Zoom or WhatsApp between company and the channel. This is on the uprise. There are also instances of some order placements happening. So e-commerce transactions happening with farmers also. So these are all incipient trends. These are nascent, and we will have to see how these things get established. Agri input companies are tying up with e-commerce companies. Collections is something which we do believe is going to remain challenged. Liquidity is going to be an important element, important constraint in the market. So we would say that there will be some impact, but it's not a dismal kind of situation. It is certainly going to be much better than many other industries. With respect to medium term,
Nagarajan, if you don't mind, just kind of wind it up in a minute. If you don't mind.
yeah, I'm done actually. I'm done. So in the medium term, we do expect that there will be the impact will be based on how much farmer incomes get disrupted, how the actual rainfall pans out, how also cash flow turns out in the market. At this point in time, we think we are very cautious on Rabi. We think that the situation is going to be even more challenging than 2020. As far as the long run is concerned, however, as they say, the future looks bright. Atmanirbhar Bharat package seems to have some bright ingredients. It is expected to be positive, provided the policies are executed well. And I want to underline that because there is difference between policy pronouncement and on-the-ground execution. So that's how we see it. And I want to just thank AU for your patience.
Thank you very much, Nagarajan. Wonderful, very insightful and elaborate presentation. A lot of areas have been covered. Thank you very much. I have some comments to make on the ECA, on APMC. I've written commentaries on this. I've written commentaries on this for the Hindu Business Line recently, but I'll probably take it up a little later if we have the time towards the end. I'm going to now invite Mr. Rana, Ajay Rana, to share his thoughts from Savanna Seeds, CEO, Savanna Seeds. Ajay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chandrasekhar and Mr. Vaidya for organizing this event. I represent a rice seed company. We are the largest rice seed company. We operate from high value products to even the public varieties. We deal into that. And a lot of points are already covered by the previous two speakers. I'll focus on key pointers. Can you hear me, Anita?
Yeah, clear.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir. Clearly.
Can I share my screen or you're going to share my presentation?
Sir, I'll share it.
Okay. Okay, you can open my presentation.
Yes, sir.
Go to the next slide. Sweta, Anita, you can switch to next slide.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll briefly cover these points. Of course, a lot of information already shared about monsoon, impact of COVID on agriculture, input availability, my take on the stimulus package, view on MSP, and is there a risk of food inflation? So that's where I'm going to focus my talk. Anita, you can go next. So the monsoon, the good news is like the monsoon is expected to be normal. And, today's news says like it can hit Kerala coast by 1st of June. But like, yeah, there are two different thoughts, 1st or 5th of June, but like largely from IMD as well as the private forecaster, SkyMet, they both are forecasting normal monsoon. So that's a good news for the agriculture sector as well as the economy. Anita, you can move to next. So during last 3 months of, the lockdown was announced on March 23rd, and we have completed 2 months and now started 3rd month of lockdown. What has happened to Indian agriculture and farmer, the perishable product producer, like farmer, those who are into floriculture, vegetable, fruit, the dairy, poultry, they are very badly impacted by lockdown and drop in demand. For example, like here in Azadpur Mandi, which is the largest vegetable market in the country, and of course they say like maybe the largest in Asia, In fact, like the usual flow during March and April used to be 300 to 400 trucks. That dropped to less than 50%. So these farmers, those who are involved into perishable goods production, they are in fact like impacted badly. And in fact, like it is devastating. There's a flower market in Delhi next to Connaught Place. And every day morning, this place used to start working at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the flower shipped to all over the NCR region from there. There's no business happening there. In fact, like something is picked up in last 1 week or 10 days, but like initial 2 months. And a lot of farmers in NCR and around all the big cities, I'll say all the big metros are into flower production, vegetable. So this segment of agriculture is impacted very severely. In fact, the assessment has to be done, and this is one sector of farmer. They are smaller, but they grow 3-4 crops in a year, and the cash flow of these farmers, in fact, and the traders involved, engaged with these farmers, that segment is very badly impacted. The good news is on the cereal crop and oilseed. The large crops like wheat, rice, maize, mustard, they're not impacted much. And in northern India, as well as in MP in central, the state governments as well as FCI did a commendable job for procurement and purchase of wheat, as well as mustard. So that was in fact like helpful for the Rabi crop. Rabi rice crop is good in south, but in east, especially Bengal, this recent cyclone had a very bad impact on the crop. In fact, like the crop which is ready to harvest, in fact, like many district farmers have harvested, but all the fields are flooded. The Bengal situation has in fact not been shared much by the media, but I have been talking to our dealer and the staff there. The impact on Bengal, in fact, like there is a double whammy for Bengal, first COVID and now the cyclone. And Bengal is a major player in rice production. The Kharif crop sowing, especially the rice transplanting, the cost is going to increase because of the migration of the labor. The 90% of the rice crop is grown in Kharif season, and almost 95% of the rice crop we have in the country is transplanted, manually transplanted. And the labor cost is going to hurt the farmer. In fact, first the labor availability and then the labor cost. These two are going to be key challenge for Kharif crop sowing. Of course, the input takeoff, farmers were also worried about like availability of seed, fertilizer. I was reading some statistics about fertilizer sales. In fact, like by end of April, there's in 2019, 8 lakh ton fertilizer was sold. This year, in the same period, the fertilizer sales are 10 lakh tons. We have also seen early trend of farmer coming and buying seed also early because they're worried whether the availability will be a problem later on. Anita, you can go to the next chart. Mr. Nagarajan has mentioned about it. The supply chain is disrupted by the lockdown. Of course, the government of India, especially Ministry of Agriculture, they were very responsive. We immediately reached out. In fact, like our association, seed associations, we immediately reached out to the government in March when lockdown was announced that this is the time of year when we pack seed, when we start shipping seed, and 80% of the seed, especially the hybrids, are produced in Telangana state. And from Telangana, the seed is shipped out to north, west, and all parts of the country. In the very first week, government allowed us to, in fact, like they gave permission, and especially the Telangana state government also to operate our seed plants. But the labor availability continued to be a challenge. As I said earlier, like the bulk fertilizer, the urea and the DAP, their availability is normal. Farmer have bought fertilizer early. I have noticed some distribution challenges in the country because of the logistic challenges. Seed industry, our plant operations are badly impacted. In fact, I'll say till now, most of us are operating at a capacity of 60 to 70%. In March, April, in fact, we were working even on a lower capacity. We had challenges like even packing material supplies, seed treatment chemical supply. Shipping got impacted because of the non-availability of trucks initially, and whole the eco system of logistics was disrupted. So there are delay in market placement. In fact, now we are concerned about we have shipped the seed and we are still shipping the whole industry to our wholesaler. But from wholesaler, the seed movement to retailer is low. And that continues to be a worry, like whether seed is reaching timely to the farmer or not. At this moment, we expect especially in the hybrid high value segment, there can be 10 to 20% shortfall in the seed supplies or timely supplies. We may end up packing by end of June, but by the time the purchase season or planting season is over. Agrochemical supply, looking at the inventory level in the country, we expect to be normal, and agrochemical comes little later. Farmers start buying seed and fertilizer first, and agrochemical purchase begins in the month of June, July, August. They are the big months. And by the time, I believe a lot of industrial activity is picking up, every state is opening up. So I expect not much pressure on the agrochemical sector. The credit requirement likely to increase because there is a liquidity crunch. The Rabi crop purchased, there are the wheat. In fact, like the procurement is good, but still the payments are not released. And I already talked about the smaller grower, the vegetable farmers, the losses they have suffered. So overall, there's a liquidity crunch in the system. Stimulus package, the short-term impact is neutral in my view for agriculture sector. Medium to long-term, these reforms like APMC are going to have positive impact. I'll say that direct benefit transfer to the farmer is the need of hour. Maybe the second tranche can be released because farmer will have some cash in hand to buy inputs. There's discussion going on of allocating Manrega funds for farm labor. That will be a big help for the farmer if government does it. Increasing demand is critical at this point of time for the economy. The big package with the government of India announced, the 20 lakh crores. Of course, the medium to long-term impact are good. I believe so. But initially, the demand is not there. The labor movement in the MSME sector, they're suffering because they cannot pay wages. And that's why the labor is moving back to their home states. So maybe, transferring wages to these people, direct transfer of wages is a better choice than, the loans and the credits to industries. This medium and small enterprises, they are all sitting on inventories. Gurgaon, where I'm based out, is a big sector. There is a big center for textile and the export of garments. They are all sitting on inventories. There's no demand. The malls are not open. The retailers are not open. So they will need loans when they need to manufacture more. But they're already sitting on the inventories, most of them. So creating demand in the economy is the need of hour. And if the fund allocation can go, the money can go to consumer pocket directly, that will help. Banks are also not, in fact, like the banking operations were also impacted. Banks are reluctant to, lend money to MSMEs. Of course, government said they're going to provide the collateral, but you talk to all the big banks and they're reluctant to lend money. So this stimulus package is not going to have big, immediate impact on agriculture. My view on the MSP and the Kharif target, in fact, for doubling the farmer income, government has increased MSP in last 3 years, 16%. And if we look at the last 5 years average, it's 33%. We expect a bigger increase in MSP this year too. The government has to, announce money here to help farmers. The minister recently announced that we are going to see the record food grain production in the country, thanks to a bumper wheat crop as well as the rice crop was good last year. We have good news. We have and a food grain stock to feed 1.3 billion. Kharif acreages under rice are expected to be in this range of 38 to 39 million hectare, but depends on the availability of labor for transplanting. I think there's an opportunity for increasing mechanization, direct seeded rice, or transplanting machines for rice. In general, what we have seen during the COVID lockdown, that mechanization, in fact, is the future if we have to face such challenges. Cotton is going to be normal. In my view, corn may come under pressure because the demand from the poultry sector is low. Vegetable acreages in the short term likely to reduce, and because of this drop in demand, and this may lead to during the festival season we can see inflation in vegetable prices. So that's the summary from my side. I think this is my last slide, Anita.
Yes, sir.
Yep. So I'll be more than happy to take any questions or comments, observation.
Thank you, Ajay, for this wonderful presentation. I think wonderful snapshot of your thoughts. Very fine, and I'm happy you touched the supply disruption of seed. You talked about banks' reluctance. This is a very significant issue, in my opinion, as far as banking is concerned. The very objective of the government of India in expanding liquidity may be defeated if the banks continue to remain reluctant to lend and continue to remain risk averse. Anyway, I truly appreciate. On risk of food inflation, in fact, I think we need to assure everyone, we need to assure that we have enough and more food in this country at the moment, whether it is rice, wheat, coarse grains, pulses, sugar, edible oil. I think we have enough of this. But yes, seasonally, there could be some tightness in the supply of vegetables during the festival season. But I think we need to, but that's usually a seasonal factor, really speaking. And therefore, but we have to be on guard. A point very well taken. Thank you, Ajay. Maybe we'll have another round of questions if we have the time. I now want to bring in Mr. Amit Agarwal, who is the co-founder and executive director of Star Agri Warehousing and Collateral Management. He also runs a finance company. He runs a tech company called Agri Bazaar for marketing agriculture commodities and others. Amit, what is your take on? Of course, we talked about the monsoon outlook. What is your take on the Kharif crop in terms of finance? Are there any issues in terms of warehousing and logistics? What are the issues and challenges and prospects? And what about marketing?
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I wish you and your team members and a family a very healthy and safe stay at home at your, and somebody like, Ajay Rana said he started coming to office also. So the current times are, very challenging in terms of, in agriculture also, because the mandis are, they are opening as in very limited manner, even today. So every Adatia in Mandi, they are allowing only, 2 or to maximum 5 farmers to come and sell their produce. So it's a very challenging time for the, even Rabi crop. The good news is the MSP procurement, the government has done a very good job. And I think, even better than last year, and they managed well. And their, MSP procurement is almost completed by 70%. And they have directly transferred the money in farmers' account. As a result, as we all know that, and we all talked about all the gloom and doom. The good news, we have a very good monsoon is coming, and starting from June 1st, and it will reach to entire country by 15 June. So when we have when the farmers have money in their pocket, whether it's from the private sale or from the government, so they are immediately going to buy pulses and the seed and fertilizer for their next crop. So I think on our platform we are seeing a lot of traction in terms of the buying the seeds and fertilizer and other demands for next month, like pesticides. in a greater manner, from areas like, Jharkhand, MP, Maharashtra, and Rajasthan. And, I'm happy to share that, most of the farmers are now, adopting this digital technology. Like means like, they are, downloading a app, and they are, just, putting their orders, and, we are able to, gather their demand, and, just like, sell the goods, and deliver their goods, at their, home. So, or farm level, whatever, like you say. So I think digital platform is a, is a way forward. And our platform is like also provide, this output sales. So this April month, was very exceptional for us. I would like to share that we had done, around 3,000 crore of business on our, on our platform, because, entire mandi were closed, and farmer were not able to sell their, crops. And, few state government, and I must congratulate, central and state government. They are very responsive, and like, the moment we pitched our, solution to the government, they immediately allowed us to operate as a online mandi. So we got license from MP. Immediately we got license from, like, e-mandi license from Rajasthan government, and many other government from Telangana. So we were able to, conclude sale of 3,000 crore of pulses, grapes, fruits, and, on our platform. And these, goods were like, delivered to, state like, Lakshadweep, Ladakh, kind of, where we got demand from there, and we were able to deliver the, these output. And the initially, at the time of, starting of, this lockdown, we felt that, like, there was no availability of trucks, driver was not available. But after immediately, like, 15-20 days, everything was normal. And from 14th of April, we were getting, a lot of trucks. From 14th of April till today, we have, almost we have, like, engaged around 7,000 trucks from various part to various part in this country. So I think, situation is going to be like, very normal, and the people have to learn that, it's like this virus is going to stay more, and like, we have to learn to live with this virus. So at a key trend that we were, witnessing during this season, the government's effort, like, in terms of, providing, money to the farmers, and they were using, this payment platforms. And that was a, like, a key game changer. Earlier, government using just, RTGS through banks and all, but now they have allowed in some part of state that, they can, they use digital wallet. So like we have digital wallet like AgriPay. So government is putting money in that, and we were able to transfer that money to the farmer's account. And the major objective was to, like, government is trying to do some pilot kind of thing, where the like, money should reach to the right farmer. And government is also asking us to, geotag their farm. Like, once we geotag their farm, so we can track their crops, like, for the next season, whether, farmers, again, they are growing or not. And if they're growing, so they should, get the data, and they can give, the best price at the time of, even the before harvesting. That was the idea. I think government is, very proactive in, digitizing all the, this complete agri supply chain. So we see a clear shift in the ability of farmers, especially small farm owners, to command a better price for their produce, and ability to sell on the, online platforms like us or Enam kind of thing. Enam is also, very progressive. Earlier, they have been running their platform last, 5 years. Recently, government has also announced that it will be a national agri market. So what Enam is trying to do is they are allowing, e-platform like us to, plug in their system, so we can, we can be more efficient, and we can, like, becoming a truly, national agri market. So that kind of, changing strategies, government is bringing. I think that will change this country at all. Today, like, you all are from, pre-harvest space. You do a lot of hard work, and you provide right advice and right seed, pesticide, and fertilizer to the farmer. But the major problem is in post-harvest management. Like, farmer is not able to get the right price from the buyer. So with this change, I think, farmer profitability will increase like anything, and their productivity will also increase once they are able to sell, their produce to many other people. Today they are selling only in mandis, that to, one kachadati or two kachadatias, they are whom they are associated with. I think that will be the, like, game changer from the next season onwards. We also run a agri warehousing company. In fact, we are the first player in agri warehousing in India. We started our business Star Agri in 2007. So this year we saw demand in warehousing is very low compared to last year, because a clear reason is we also have a product called warehouse receipt based financing product. Means any farmer or any trader or any processor, if they deposit their goods in our warehouse, we issue warehouse receipt, and that receipt is going to bank, and bank finance it because of priority sector lending. But today banks are not able to finance it, because they are they have a lot of fear in their mind, and they are saying general tendency is if we finance today, so we have to give moratorium. Why should we finance it? So they have suspended even current limits, which is very painful to the sectors. Even food processor, they are having a acute problem of liquidity. They are not able to run their plant, because if they buy from farmers, they have to pay immediately, and they get their money in 7-8 days time, and they are ready to run their plant for for on 100% capacity, because the food demand is very high from the household. If you look at the edible oil demand, especially from kachi khani sarson oil, I think the margins are good, and the crop is also good, and they have a huge demand. But again, the problem is with the liquidity. So banks, they need to open up, they need to work on data, when the if somebody is there working with them from last 5-6 years, so they should not behave very in a different manner in this difficult time. So banks should not become fair weather friends, and the markets are good, they are lending. If the markets are adverse, so they are not lending it. So they can, obviously they can increase their security and all. And the other trend I saw on in the financial sector, and which is very painful, this behavior of rating companies, rating agencies, right from CRISIL, CARE and all. So they have put agri businesses in a negative list. I don't know why, when everybody is saying that agri business is the only business in difficult time which can run very efficiently. Still they are not getting giving ratings to the agri companies. And even they have reduced downgraded rating most of the companies. There are a lot of NBFCs which lend only in the agriculture sector, but they are not getting funds from the banks, because they are not getting rating. And even if they had good rating, these agencies have downgraded these their ratings. Yeah. So I think the bank should develop their own rating system. They should not depend on the outside third party rating agencies. These are teething points which these points never reach to within finance ministry or RBI. I think rating should not be mandatory for the business who is having turnover of 250 crore. If we have good liquidity, if banks lend properly, I think agriculture sector will give good growth to the to this country. And in the it's very important for the Kharif season as well. The I'm also seeing a one trend where today we see consumer demand for health and healthy food, nutrition food, immunity booster, sanitized packed food. And there are a lot of demand from these companies, like those who produce such kind of stuff at warehousing level. So I think this activity will increase like anything. People who invest in in frozen food and some nutrition kind of thing, I think they will have in a better position in months to come. In Kharif's output crop, I'm very much I'm fearful for the crop like guar, cotton, and castor. The cotton, simple reason is if you look at the current demand from the from the yarn and the cotton industries, I think they have suspended their productions up to 6 to 9 months. So, and on the other hand, we have a very good monsoon, very normal monsoon, and the farmers are they are sowing cotton like anything. I think you will beat the cotton production compared to last month. So what will happen in November? The November, you will have a lot of cotton, but the government will be the only buyer, because these yarn companies and all, there will not be any kind of demand, because these textile industries completely shut it down for next 6 to 8 months. So even if they open even in November, so they will not buy cotton so easily. So government, they need to prepare for a large fund to buy cotton in month of November. So this, like, this is a very painful area where, farmer has no, knowledge for the, for the what he should grow. What is the, future trend? What is the price forecast for the crop which he's like, should work together and provide, such kind of knowledge to farmers and help farmers to become a, think like a industry, think like a industry people, or think like a, trader who can, if he grow well, if he grow right crop, so then, he can make good money. Similarly in guar seed, I'm from Rajasthan, I live in Bombay, but I see a lot of, cropping and planting happening in Rajasthan for guar seed. If you look at the guar output, guar demand today is a very low, because if you look at the crude oil price in entire world is getting down, and the guar export is going to be very down, because there is no demand of guar export from the, shell companies. So I think, the today guar price, it will fall down. So I'm very, fearful if the farmer, and on the other hand, guar this cannot be buy by the government, or even on MSP, because there is no MSP for the guar, and it's a completely industrial crop. And we have around, more than, 4 to 5 million metric ton production, which is a very large, and for the farmers. So I think, that will be, that is a really, fearful factor, and even castor. So again, again, it's a industrial commodity. So again, there is no demand from automobiles, cosmetics, and all. So I think, the industrial this commodity will have a greater challenge compared to, like, other things. The demand from palm oil is getting, decrease, which means that, demand from, soybean, mustard, and other crops will increase. So edible oil, I think that sector will be, interesting to watch. Even, Ministry of Agriculture, they are very committed to increase oilseed production in India, and they have formed a lot of committees, and, one separate department is working on the edible oil this oilseed production, because, if you look at the, a lot of money, this edible oil is the one of the largest imported activity in India. So I think government want to reduce it, and they want to increase oilseed production in next 2 to 3 years. I think that's a, very welcoming uh, step and welcoming, move from the government side. Lastly, like, the God grace, we feel that, by the time of, Kharif season gets over, and the farmer is ready to cut his produce in October, November, the COVID challenge in India will get addressed. I think we should be ready to get the economy back to the normal and integrate the COVID-19 habits of hygiene, physical distancing, to lead a healthy and safe and productive life. So I think with this, I think, our like business is on more of output side, and uh, so when we sell output, the food companies are now asking, like, traceability. So I think that's a, like, that's the thing which, industry should work, like, all input companies should develop some kind of technology where, they can give, some kind of, solution to the food processor, where they can track the this traceability. With this, I think I should pause here, and I, like, wish you all the best for your, future, and for your businesses. And I'm sorry that I have not prepared a presentation, and, it was skipped from my mind. I got information, but I'm really sorry for that.
No.
Thank you.
Don't worry, Amit. Thank you very much for bringing some very special insights into areas which are usually not discussed, in terms of, for example, use of technology, how farmers are becoming tech savvy, electronic platform becoming increasingly popular, etc. I think these are very important. And obviously, some of the crops, I completely agree with you, are going to face huge challenges, like, of course, castor and of course, guar gum. But in the larger scheme of things for our country, from a food security and nutrition security perspective, these are not significant crops. These are important, good commercial crops with extraordinary export potential. But at the moment, I think the export potential is quite muted. I understand. Very nice. Thank you very much. We are now, it's what, 12:25. Anita, what do you think? I think I'll go back to our panelists. Maybe I think just 1 minute each. If there is anything beyond what the panelists have already said, they want to share something more, maybe we'll just have 1 minute each for some concluding thoughts by the panelists. Now, shall we start with Nagarajan? Are you there?
There is no question answer.
Yeah, Nagarajan, anything?
No, there is
parting comments?
there is nothing extra beyond what has been shared. If there's any question, we can probably address it.
All right, okay. Ajay, any parting comments before we take up the questions?
No, we can take questions.
We can take. Amit, okay, Amit just completed. I will, of course, we will have 10-minute question answer, and I'll need about 3 or 4 minutes to make my concluding remarks. And therefore, Anita, who is going to read questions? Shall I take it up from here?
If anyone has questions, kindly raise your hand.
It's all there in the chat.
It's already there in the chat.
I have a question. Can I?
You can send it to the chat.
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I speak?
Yes, Mr. Ajit.
Please.
Yeah, I'm Pradeep Dave.
Yeah.
You are listening?
Yeah, sir.
You are getting...
Yes, Mr. Pradeep.
Yeah.
You can...
I'm Pradeep Dave, President, Pesticide Manufacturer and Formulator Association of India, Chairman, MCO Pesticides, and we represent 350 pesticide manufacturers.
Right.
First of all, I want to compliment IMC for having a very wonderful subject, Kharif, Monsoon and Kharif. And all the speakers has given a very, very, very good inputs for further 6-month guideline to the industry. Here just I wanted to add that 27 pesticide which you have referred about banning is not banned. It is not banned.
No, I know. It's proposed to be banned. True.
Yeah. It's a draft notification.
Yes.
It will take 45 days and then further representations, and it will final draft will come after a year.
Right.
But here, I just want to add to the August people that one side government is telling Atma Nirbhar, but one side and Ministry of Agriculture is doing Atma Samarpan. By these 27 molecules are holding 40% market in Indian pesticide industry. Almost 4,000 crore is used by Indian farmers, and 2,000 crore is exported to China, USA, Brazil, and everybody. And these are the generic pesticides. They are available to the farmer in 300 to 500 rupees a liter, whereas now government wants to ban it and allow ready-made pesticide formulation in India, for which farmer will pay 1,500 to 3,000 rupees a liter. So I want to add...
Dave Saab, 1 second. Point taken. I have a request to make because I understand this issue. Would you like to share? Share a note with the IMC, please?
Yes, I will be sending. I will be sending
with IMC, and then we'll see how to take this forward. But the point well taken. Point taken.
One more point. This is a very good presentation. It should be given to the everybody. It should be circulated.
We'll share it. We'll share all the presentation.
Very good. It's very.
Thank you. Let's go to the next question. Anita.
Mr.
There is
Ajit
one question that I see here. Jeet Vora, please let us know whether APMC will close or open. I don't think APMC will be closed. APMCs will continue to remain open. They will continue to remain, well, they should be depoliticized, but whether it will be depoliticized, how soon it will happen, I don't know. But there will also be concurrent markets run by the private sector. There will be private markets and, of course, state-run APMCs. Both will coexist very soon. The next question is minimum support price. If announced before the season, it will not affect the plantation pattern and the country would end up with excess production. The very purpose of minimum support price is to tell the farmer that please go ahead and produce. we are here, we are the government, and we will make sure that you get the minimum price that is possible. So this is not going to lead to any excess production, provided the minimum support price is in terms of market conditions, etc. Minimum support price is important. It is a sovereign guarantee given to the farmer by the government of India. But often we found prices ruling below the MSP, and farmer gets hugely disappointed. And then therefore a procurement mechanism is extremely important. Yeah. Anita, next one.
Sir, Saugatas Ghosh, sir, wanted to
Ask a question. Sure, of course.
a question.
Yes. Sir, I wanted to understand the logic of the government proposing to ban these 27 or 28 odd chemicals. What is the logic behind them? That is one.
Yeah.
And the second question is related to the cash crops and the current locust. Do you see any adverse impact on cash crops like sugarcane, etc., because of this locust and these other issues?
Sorry. Yes, you want me to respond, or Nagarajan or Ajay would respond?
Anybody who can sort of has a grasp on this entire.
Input side, yeah, from the input side, Rallis, I'm sure Rallis would have some view on the logic that has prompted government to propose a ban on 27 chemicals.
Well, I think this is Nagarajan here. With respect to the proposed ban of the 27 active ingredients, the government has advanced a number of arguments. I think some of them range from what you can call as scientific arguments. Some of them could be bucketed into procedural arguments, where there is an assertion that is made that no prior information or data that was asked by the government had been submitted. There is another bucket of arguments which talk about availability of alternatives which have less effects on the environment. There are arguments which can be bucketed into a fourth group, which could potentially be that in some other country it has been done, therefore what is good there ought to be good here, kind of an argument. So there are a number of arguments that have been advanced, which is all available actually if you read through the draft notification that has come. So these are all classified. For each of the 27 AIs, there are reasons that are given. Of course, it is a different matter whether different stakeholders in the ecosystem agree with those reasons or disagree. That is a different point. But the government has put out what they think are the reasons available in the draft notification, which can be downloaded from the government website.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Nirav had a question.
Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Please.
Hi, thank you for the
What is the question?
Yeah. Now my question is with regards to most of the farm production is from the big farmers, and they are more dependent on the farm labor, and most of the farm labor have gone home because of the COVID-19. So how this will affect the production?
First proposition, 80% of India's farms are small and marginal.
Okay.
With less than probably 2 acres of land. Okay. So it is not correct to say, pardon my saying this, not correct to say that only large farmers exist. 80% and more are small farmers and small farms. Number one. Number two, we need to know the difference between a farmer who's a landowner, he tills his own land, and a migrant worker who comes in search of work. Because migrant work is a seasonal work. And many of them came to the cities like Bombay and Delhi, etc. They actually became construction workers. They are the people who are actually going back home. And therefore, those who have stayed back in their villages would certainly be available. But for instance, for those in UP and Bihar, for example, who used to go to Punjab and Haryana, especially during harvest time.
Sorry.
They could not go in the month of April because of the lockdown, and those who were there already could not come back home. So I think that is more of a socio-economic issue. But at the moment, because many of the migrant workers have gone back home, and a large number of them are in UP and Bihar and Odisha, Jharkhand, in these areas. I think their labor availability for Kharif planting should not be a problem, but in other areas there could be a tightness in the availability of labor. It is possible.
Yeah, so I'll just add on this. My
Sure.
comment is, this Punjab, Haryana, West UP, they rely largely on migrant laborers for
Correct.
rice transplanting.
Correct.
And this labor usually for rice transplanting comes in the start coming end of May, early June. In fact, like there's labor available for harvest, but most of the harvest in these states is mechanized now.
Right.
The big
Right.
operation here, which is manual, is rice transplanting.
Correct.
And that labor comes in May and in early June. So there's an uncertainty in these states about the availability of labor and there's huge area, like nearly 15 million acres of rice has to be transplanted. So, but it doesn't mean there is no labor. In fact, like within these states also, there is labor in the villages, but farmer will have to pay more. And many farmers are in fact now also trying hand on direct seeded rice. They're going for mechanized rice sowing. And in fact, like that's the need of the hour, for modernization of our agriculture.
Right. Thank you very much. I think it is extremely important. Anita, it's about 12:35 now. I think we need to start winding up. I want to take about 3 or 4 minutes to make some concluding remarks. Then of course, a vote of thanks. There are 2 or 3 very clear mega trends that are available, which we have seen. I'm convinced increasingly agriculture will be mechanized. There's a great opportunity for mechanization of agriculture. There's also going to be a big boost to farmer producer companies. In fact, the government, of course, has said they are going to establish or encourage setting up of 10,000 farmer producer companies. I'm sure that will happen, but I think that should get a big shot in the arm, particularly in the context of the government talking about private markets and in addition to APMC and of course contract farming, etc. So there is a great opportunity for farmer producer companies and food processing companies to come together and enter into a contract. I wrote a commentary, an opinion piece in the Hindu Business Line recently on the legal aspects of contract farming and essential commodities, etc. So this is a very positive take-home message. And as Amit mentioned, farmers are increasingly becoming tech savvy. They are open to exploring newer avenues of marketing, like electronic market platform, etc., which is again a very, very positive step in my opinion. I'm expecting there is a huge responsibility on the Indian banking sector to ensure that the objectives of the Reserve Bank of India and the objectives of the Government of India are fulfilled, that they should now start lending. They are risk averse. They are reluctant to lend. I think that attitude should change. And unless they start lending, with of course adopting prudential norms, it's going to be very difficult for our economy to come out of this very, very recessionary phase. Increasingly, government approach to agriculture, food, and governance in general is going to be substantially welfare oriented. The focus will be on food, focus will be on nutrition, focus will be on health, and of course on education, etc., etc. I'm also expecting from an agriculture perspective, the Government of India's emphasis will be on food security. It has always been, but I think there'll be greater emphasis on food security, particularly through local production or enhancing domestic production. Consumers on their part, I believe, will increasingly opt for healthy foods, healthy lifestyles, and will opt for health foods. So there is an opportunity there. There was a question that if those who are in the floriculture business, flower production, what should they do, because there's hardly any demand for flowers? Yes, the response is very clear. Medicinal plants, aromatic and medicinal plants, herbal plants. I think that could be one opportunity for those in the floriculture business. And therefore consumers will opt for healthy foods, and therefore those who are in business can start looking at what are the opportunities in health foods, etc. I think the accommodative monetary policy and low interest rate regime of our Reserve Bank, in my view, will likely continue for a longer duration, which is very good. And I think we have enough and more food in this country. There is no scarcity of essential food commodities, and therefore I think the potential for food inflation is extremely limited, unless of course there is a major weather related catastrophe. And I'm hoping, of course, that the locusts will go away and will not damage our crops. I think with this, I just want to conclude. I want to say good luck and God bless you all, and give it back to Anita, probably for a vote of thanks by Ashish Barwale.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for amazing insights. Now, I would like Ashish Barwale, Chairman of Agribusiness and Food Processing Committee of IMC, to share vote of thanks.
And yeah, okay, all right.
You were saying something, sir?
No, yeah, I was wanting to thank all my co-panelists. They've been so good, but I'm sure you're going to do that. Thank you, Ashish, please.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for your participation in today's discussion. On behalf of the Agribusiness Committee and the IMC, I would like to thank our guests, our panelists, Mr. Nagarajan, Mr. Rana, and Mr. Agarwal, for giving us a nice overview of the present scenario of agriculture in India, both from the marketing side and a nice overview of the new tools that farmers are using and companies are latching on to help our farmers, but also from the side of inputs and both chemicals, fertilizers, as well as seeds. We are in a crisis in some ways, but as we have seen, there can be a silver lining to the crisis, and really I feel that this could be the time of agriculture and farmers in India if the government does go through with some of the reforms that they have proposed. I would also like to thank our president for giving us the introductory address for the session. And once again, thank you for your interest, for your knowledgeable questions, for the great discussions, and wishing our agriculture industry all the best in this turmoil, and hope we come out of it with a lot of positives to talk about. Thank you once again.
You all stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.